also take the roll call. Ted?
Here.
Madhurima is here, and also, hi Lee. Hi, Lee is here as well. So, good midday, right? Ted was saying that's the appropriate thing. How's everyone doing at Cora?
You're doing well.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Are
getting ready to, take a break at the end of the year, but it's been a pretty busy week trying to wrap up. So,
Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah,
I hope that are you both going to be on break for next week? Fingers
yeah,
crossed. Okay, good. That's
yeah.
great. I know that you have updates to give, and I wanted to give an update from our meeting on Monday, but you go first.
Okay. So a few things that we'd like to do in open session, talk through the high-level search summary. Those are our main updates. Happy then to kind of talk through staff and community communications and options for involvement and the first round interviews, both in terms of timing and in terms of finalizing the first round interview questions. So I'll start with updates and then maybe we pause and hear yours and kind of do the second half of that. In terms of public updates, we launched into the market on October 8th. We've reached out to over 380 contacts from within the Koya network, but also in addition to referrals that we received from staff, board, and the library's own networks and outreach. So far, we've had 43 individuals express interest in the position, 32 having submitted applications. We've reviewed a number of applications in detail with the search committee, and in today's closed session, Koya would like to recommend 4 candidates to move forward to first round interviews and calibrate on additional candidates. Expecting at this rate, we'll probably look to schedule somewhere between 6 and 8 first round interviews in January. Possibly less, possibly more, depending on how the committee calibrates around some applications. But certainly at this point, feel we have 4 individuals we can strongly recommend to move forward into interviews.
That's awesome. Yeah. Are there questions? So, thank you. And I wanted to say that last meeting here, we had talked about the market feedback that you were getting and questions about the posted salary range. And I brought that back to our full board meeting on Monday. We couldn't have voted on it because I was like new business. So we'll have to have an official vote next full board meeting, which is in January. But I feel pretty comfortable in saying that you should tell people that we're going to vote on it, and of course they're more than welcome to like watch the recording of the meeting if they want to gauge whether or not we seemed interested or resistant. We weren't resistant, but but they can, but if people want to, have that information. So anyway, so I expect, I expect it to pass the vote, but we did have a couple of trustees not there on Monday, so it's game, but I think we should be able to know for sure on January. But in the meanwhile, I think our position is, feel free to tell people that, it doesn't seem completely set in stone as of now.
Thank you. That's really helpful feedback.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out if there was anything else. No, there was also I wanted to make sure that I double checked about the search committee making decisions for the first round, and I think there had been some confusion about when full board would get to decide on the slate of candidates to pull in for interviews, but I think we should still feel pretty empowered to move forward at the end of today's meeting.
That sounds good. I think maybe you can clarify this for us, because I thought when we had discussed it, it was that the full board would look at the kind of results of the second round interviews and then make a decision about who the final three candidates were. Is that not what the board was discussing on Monday?
No, I think, I mean, we should look back and check, but my understanding also was that the full board would, absolutely have a vote about who to, though we can't vote in closed session, we wouldn't be able to vote in open session, so anyway, we'll figure that out, but like, you know, the full board would be deciding who to call for the, final round after the second interviews.
Got it.
But I think there is some like, a little bit of confusion maybe about how the board will decide who to vote on if they haven't like actually
Oh,
been in the
yeah.
second round of the interviews. Does
Okay,
that make sense? So
that
like
does.
what information they would actually need, so I think that's something that we should also, think
Yeah.
through.
So what we would plan to provide to the board, and we do this for board members at, who are being invited in after a process, is something we call a search summary. I can send you a redacted example of one, but typically what we do is we kind of share the search stats. So who we reached out to, who we got applications from, the number you all reviewed. We share information about the demographics of the candidate pool so they can get a sense of how that looked as the search narrowed. We would share details about the first round interviews. So who were the people who interviewed in the first round, um, and notes after we debrief on why somebody did or didn't move beyond the first round. And then in the second round would share kind of the folks who made it to the second round, what the second round looked like, notes on those second round interviews, initial debrief or feedback from this committee, and provide all of that to the board, including like candidate applications and things like that. And knowing that the board is going to want information about these first and second round interviews, one of the things we can be thinking about is how to take some notes. So we won't, you know, record somebody's first round interview for the full board to watch, but we can certainly have some high level notes on how folks answered questions if that helps to inform a little bit. This is how the first round interview went. This is why we selected folks for a second round. And this is how the second rounds went for you to then decide who are the third and final candidate. I know that was a lot.
No, that's fair. Um, okay, thank you. I'll have to,
Yeah.
I'm suddenly realizing that I should look back and see about the recording of the interviews, because we did it a specific way in the last search, and I don't know if we're required to do it in that way or not, so that's just, I mean, it would be in closed session anyway,
Yeah.
but sometimes I mean, we have to have recordings of closed session, even if they're not literally,
Open.
open, so, so let me check on that and get back to you if there's like
Okay.
anything that will affect us moving forward.
Yeah, that would be good to know because if according to the OMA rules, we do need to record interviews because it's closed session and there's quorum, then we will need to check with candidates as we are like scheduling them to get their permission to be recorded.
Okay, perfect.
Um, but kind of in the interim, while you're having those conversations on Monday, I'll send you a redacted copy of that search summary so you can kind of see like what that would look like.
Okay, thank you, and I'll send that forward to the full board too, so they know
Mhm.
what to expect. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm sorry, you said there was another update, right?
Yeah, we had a couple of other things on the agenda that we think we can talk about in open session. Stop me if I'm wrong. But in the last communication with the search committee, we shared draft emails for staff and community members. It it looked like, given the email chain, that that email for staff was ready to go out, and that there was some conversation happening internally about how to get that email out to the community members. I don't know if there's anything else you need from Trisha or I to make sure
I
folks
don't,
see that.
yeah, I don't think so. Like I can, if everybody's good, I can send that staff update email today. I did kind of run all of the information we had about the survey to Jody. our head of communications, and she had some feedback on, I think a little bit of rewording, and then wanted to have a conversation about kind of what the process looks like, sending that out as an email blast to our patrons. So actually, I don't think we're gonna get that done today, but how soon were you expecting kind of to have that community email out? Because I know it says you've set up the office hour session for the 8th. Do you mind if that comes out after the holidays, or is this something you really feel like needs to be sent out right now?
I think what is possible, right? And so if it's not possible before the holidays, we understand. I'm very open to Jody's feedback in terms of wordsmithing, as long as it meets the requirements of the search committee. But if we send it out sooner, folks might just have more time to plan, because it is a
Yeah,
little out of the ordinary to be invited maybe to something like this with a search firm. And so I think our main concern is just like, we want to meet with both staff and community before we as a committee have our meeting on the 10th. So we can take that feedback and give it to you. And we've got it as we're planning for interviews the 13th through the 23rd. And I wouldn't want staff members or community members to feel like they didn't have enough notice to do something that they wanted to do, like come to office.
yeah, I think that's the main piece, is just making sure they feel like that you don't get backlash for not giving any notice. Do you close next week?
So we're closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but every other day we're open. 31st we close at 5, and then we are closed on the 1st. But Jody is in office today, so I will see if I can get all of that done this afternoon, and then I'll send it out to the committee, what changes she has to the email, and then have her kind of talk about the process of sending that out. So I think we can do that fairly quickly. I don't know what time she's leaving today, but I think I can grab her after this meeting and we can get that done.
Lee, can I ask, has Suzanne been involved in the communication conversations? Because I think that she had at some point been sort of tasked to work with communications. So given that she's on the search committee and has done that communication work before, I'm just wondering if she has been so far?
I don't know if she's reached out to Jody on this.
Okay.
Jody hasn't said anything, but we can definitely loop her in.
Okay, and we can maybe, I'm hoping that Suzanne will join us in closed session.
Okay.
So without making it too inappropriate to have that conversation, like I could just maybe flag for Suzanne that this conversation with you and her could happen, and the rest of us can just see whatever the results are.
Yeah, that
Okay,
sounds good.
perfect, thank you.
And we are in the office, Trish and I, on Monday. So if there's anything that we can do to be helpful on Monday, happy to be available. And then our office is closed from the 24th to the 3rd, but we'll be paying attention to email. So we can certainly chime in the interim if you need us on anything. Our response time just might be a little bit slower on the 24th, 25th, for example.
Okay, sounds good.
The other aspect I think we can talk about in open interviews are preparing for the first round of interviews. There's two pieces to this, timing and the finalizing of the first round interview questions. Timing wise, we don't have a lot of overlap in the search committee members' schedules at the moment between the 13th and the 23rd. In fact, there's only one day, Monday the 13th, for 2 hours where we have Suzanne, Madarima, and Lee available. And Ted, I know you said you could make anything work, so I'm guessing you as well. But other than that, we are missing at least one person on every other day and every other time slot we suggested. So
Okay, so I didn't see Suzanne's the Suzanne's responses weren't visible to me when I did mine, or when I was looking. So maybe I can take another look and see if I can move something around to see what if anything can match up better. There are obviously going to be times that they can't, but I can try and see if there's something like that. It's just, yeah,
Yeah,
we sort of have the flip, we have flip schedules.
very flip schedules. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's worth it to do. So I could send a calendar hold now for the time on the 13th. That looks like it'll work for everyone. So we've got that at least on our calendars. Um, Maybe Monterima, if you go through and Lee, I don't know if you have any flexibility, if you might be able to do this as well and edit your responses. If there's any other times, we'll snag those. But it seems like it might require another doodle for the search committee with other options. Maybe, or we didn't really look at any times early in the morning before work hours. I don't know if that's a possibility for folks.
Can I ask Lee, is it possible that you didn't see this multiple pages of the times?
I may, let's
Because
see.
I feel like you're, and it's totally fine if you're just not
Oh, it did.
available.
No, actually I am.
Okay.
I did not see
Okay.
that.
That might help. That's a good question,
Yeah,
Monterima.
yeah.
Yeah, because your
So many questions.
availability Lee ended on the 17th or on like the 15th, and I was like, I don't know if she's really not available or if you might go back and look and edit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we might have some more options.
You will. I honestly, any kind of meeting or anything like that can be rescheduled, on my end. So I can go in and.
Okay, I think that opens up a few more options already, depending on what, you know.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
will, I'm realizing also myself that I'll go back and edit the doodle so the 20th isn't an option because it is Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I hadn't put that together when I sent the doodle your way in the beginning. Okay, so if Lee and Madarima, you have a chance to look at this, doodle one more time and maybe by like end of day, well, let's say like end of day Sunday on Monday, one of the things I'll do is part of kind of the recap email we typically send you all is also send calendar invites for the times that we've got folks available. And if we have any question about whether or not we have enough time at that point, we can troubleshoot then. But we'll wait for folks to look back through that doodle before circulating another doodle or anything like that. See what results we get now.
Okay, thank you. Get any idea of how many, or do you think you can tell us right now how many like blocks we're hoping to have?
I'd love to have at least 10 blocks on your schedule if I could, because if we give some flexibility for candidates, that can very much help. But at minimum, I would say 8, because hopefully what we're doing in closed session today is selecting at least 4 people for first round interviews, can go ahead and get them scheduled. But then when we meet on the 10th, we may be recommending additional candidates for interviews. And, maybe that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we have 8 total times, get 4 people scheduled now, then we've got 4 times still on the calendar to offer the folks that we might select on the 10th. But really, I will put the holds on your calendar for like as much time as I can get.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. The last thing on our agenda for open session was first round interview questions. Um, we'd talked about having board and senior staff weigh in on these. Wanted to talk through a little bit what that process might look like. I know we got feedback from Madarima on the questions as they exist. When we met last time, we talked a little bit about maybe streamlining as a team before sending to any other, like before sending to staff or before sending to the board. So just want to make sure that that's still on folks' radar. And if you need us for anything, we are doing what we need to do. So I could make some edits now, given Madarima's feedback, for folks to review and then determine who they want to share with and how they want to share it. Or I could wait maybe and make updates on Monday and as part of that recap email, send you a fresh version of the first round interview questions.
Well, I mean, I feel bad because Suzanne's not here, yet it's not, this is a conversation that needs to have an open session, but I do think that I would like, because I had some questions about, if we can, and at least get a check-in from the rest of the search committee about whether or not they agree, or, and by search committee, I of course include the two of you as well, so I don't know. Is that okay? Can we spend a couple of minutes on it?
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
that we have a lot to do for open session.
No, that's okay. I think, Manarima, do you want to lead on the questions that you had, or do you want me to give a brief overview for Lee and Ted?
Yeah, I'm gonna send this text to Suzanne real quick to see if she can join us.
Okay. While you're doing that, I'll just kind of remind folks what we've got. So we have a list of about 18 questions that we proposed. The questions align with the competencies and skill sets requirements laid out in the job description. So, there's staff leadership development and empowerment, questions related to that, questions related to external community relations, questions related to the library trustee collaboration and strategic leadership, questions related to organizational management. And all of those, again, align with the position profile. We will not be able to ask candidates 18 questions. There's no way. So really what we're looking at doing is narrowing down this list of proposed questions to make sure that we have 8 to 10 questions that get at kind of what do you need to know from a first round candidate to determine if you want to learn more about them in a second round. So the framing for a first round is not like, you're not coming out of the first round being like, I know I want to hire this person. You're coming out of the first round knowing like, they've got the basics of everything I think that they need, and I want to learn more about the specifics in future interviews. This first round, the goal is to have the 8 to 10 questions that are the same across the board. So every single candidate gets the same questions. And we find that it's useful to have the 8 to 10 and then assigned to committee members. So committee members have kind of a script to go through in the interview. It helps with the flow and helps with everybody knowing kind of what their responsibility is and what to expect in an interview. So we gave you 18, you're not going to ask 18. Madarima has given a little bit of feedback here about the phrasing of some of the questions and some places where we might be able to combine questions. She's highlighted a couple that she thought were good, but certainly want to make sure that the full search committee has time to look at the phrasing, look at the questions that they want to ask, tweak, edit, add, all of those things.
Thank you. So I don't know if it was clear, I don't know why it would be clear because I didn't say it anyway, but the ones that I put an asterisk are my votes for the question, for the
Yeah.
questions. Okay. So thank you. I mean, I see that you already responded to the question about mission. I just really just was not sure. I feel like I should know more about words. Ted, do you know, is mission like, does it have a religious connotation?
No.
Or an etymology? No. Okay. Um, well, regardless, I mean, I think that if we can find a synonym, maybe that's good.
Yeah, and Ted and Lee, just so you know, the question is, and I think it's okay to say
Yeah.
this in open session, right? I think the question is, how does Oak Park Public Library's work resonate with your personal mission and values? What specifically attracts you to this opportunity? It's a good starting question for candidates as they're kind of getting warmed up and introducing themselves. Instead of saying personal mission, we could say personal goals and values.
Okay.
The personal goal of the candidate or the personal goal of the library?
It would be the candidate in this context. But we're asking them how it aligns with the goals of the library, goals and values.
I see what you're saying, Ted. I think I have the same question about like, is it like, I really want to be like I don't know, an accomplished chef by the time I'm 48 or whatever, and that could be a personal goal, but I don't know. But I think that it's probably fine. I don't know how much wordsmithing. I think the candidates would understand that it's a job interview question, so probably, but I also stumbled on it. I guess, so I had some, in my opinion, there are two questions. So Lee, I think you have them in front of you. So question 3 Can you describe a time when you coached or mentored a staff member to achieve higher levels of performance when someone on your team was struggling and they needed support? Or 5, leading a team can be hard and it takes a lot of work and intention to manage others. What have you personally found to be the most challenging things about management? And what are the daily tactical things? And I was trying to figure out, maybe, given that we have to choose some, maybe one or the other.
And they sound very similar.
Yeah.
To me too, so.
Yeah.
I think if you ask 3, you're going to get a very specific question, or the answers you'll get if you ask 3 are about one-to-one interactions, probably, right? When we tend to ask about coaching or mentoring a staff member, we tend to get like, I had this situation with my direct report, and this is how it played out, and this is what I did with this one individual. If you ask 5, you might get more of somebody's general management philosophy, and they might offer a couple of examples that are broader, like this is like team management or organizational management versus the one-on-one. So I think, Trisha, I don't know if you would kind of agree with that, but I think that tends to be the difference between the answers we see in those 2 questions, either interpersonal or broader.
Yeah, I think one's a broader management question and one is specifically about, in some ways, coaching and mentoring and professional development. So little slight difference.
I will say too, any question that doesn't get asked in the first round, we can keep and ask in the second round. So
Yeah,
it's
we'll keep
really
that.
at this point, I would say a bit of a like, what do you want to hear about initially more? Like, do you want to hear more of the one-on-one or do you want to hear more of the broader management? And knowing that in the second round, we can dig in deeper to whichever one you don't ask in the first.
I do think that the one-on-one would, in my mind, kind of be a second interview question. Like, I think for the first round, I want to get like an overall view of like their management style and how they view management. So I would say, I would like us to go with 5.
I had the same thought, thanks.
And I agree.
Perfect.
I think there was one question that I think was in the library and trustee collaboration that was pretty easily comboed as per your recommendation, Madhurima. We combined leveraging the expertise of board members and a question around creating a strategic direction for a program or organization so that those 2 are tied together. I think there was one other question that Madarima flagged as having possible edits, number 18, which is about working with the leadership team to oversee operations, made an edit there so that folks felt they had a little bit more space to talk about not necessarily the time they've spent working in finances, facilities, compliance, or human resources or operations, but more about like your noteworthy experience managing those. Other than that, I haven't made any other edits. So maybe if there's anything occurring to committee members now, we can go through and we could edit specific questions or highlight ones we know we like. Otherwise, I think a next step would be to have everybody look at this over the weekend and kind of recirculate on Monday with an updated version.
I think the thing, because I didn't specifically vote for number 9, which is how OPA prioritizes feedback from patrons. I think it does need to be in the number 8 question, like patrons needs to be in number 8. Does that make sense? So when you say a wide variety of community members, it's not, I mean, there's the understanding that there's a lot of external relationships, but I think that, of course, patrons, like, we might want to, again, for this more broad first interview thing, fold that in too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just reworded 8. So it does say as well as patrons and partners from community affinity groups to community agencies like social services. How do you navigate communicating across that variety of audiences? And then
Right.
maybe what we're doing, 9, I think, is really specific about feedback loops with patrons. So maybe that's something we're saving for a second round.
Mhm. Okay, that was all. Thank you for taking the time to go over it. I just wanted to make sure to touch base with committee members.
Yeah. I think from our perspective, we don't want to impose a false timeline on you to finish this, right? Because we know we have time on the 10th for this group to have a final conversation about what these questions look like, and make sure that we're aligned and they're assigned and folks know what they're doing. But wanted to bring it up now because if you do want to share it with the senior team and with the board, want to make sure that we've got the best draft possible before you start sending it out and that they all have enough time to look at it. So um, if Monday comes and we're not ready to share it more broadly, we're not ready to share it more broadly. And we can talk then about, what next steps we need to do to kind of get it finalized before it gets shared. I don't know, it's maybe to that point, like um, if say we didn't finalize this until the week of the 6th, if we gave the stewardship team or like, sorry, that's the board I'm on has a stewardship team of staff, the leadership team. If we gave the leadership team or board members like 48 hours, like if we sent it on a Tuesday morning and we said, hey, these are the questions we're planning to ask, any comments or thoughts, and asked for it back by, say, Thursday night on the 9th so that we could all talk about it on the 10th. Is that enough time for folks or do you think
No,
they need more?
I would say not for board members. I
Okay.
mean, I think that especially, like, I never want to encourage anybody to send work before the weekend and assume that people will do work over the weekend, but I will say that given that board members all have like day jobs during the week, it's, I think, really hard to find, time, I think, for most board members to for sure have a turnaround time. I mean, I imagine that if I can send it out Monday and I give people a reminder, or I think what will probably happen is that I will send it out Monday and then they will actually only take those 2 days,
Yeah,
right before the deadline to look at it, but I would rather err on that
send it
side.
sooner.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense.
LT will follow whatever the board needs.
Okay. So yeah, I think if this team wants to share any feedback, say by, you know, let's say just to give you a little bit more time, that's not only weekend, Monday midday, then when we send our recap email on Monday, we'll include the most up-to-date version of this based on the feedback we've gotten at that point. And then of course, if you have additional edits, you can do that as part of the leadership team, right? And if Suzanne, Ted, Madarima, you have any other edits, you've got some time to do that as like a board member looking at it, right? So it's I guess I'm saying that in case Suzanne doesn't have time to look at it this weekend, understanding that she's injured, then it's not Monday isn't the deadline for her to
yeah,
contribute. She will have time just like any other board member afterwards.
perfect.
I think those are all the things on our agenda that we think we can talk about in open session. At this point, we would want to move into closed session, talk about the candidates we're recommending for interviews in January, and talk about some of the additional candidates that we've screened and would like to calibrate with you on.
Yeah, I
Unless
think
I
that's
don't
fine.
think we have anything else. Yeah. Okay.
No, I think that that's fine. I went through, but before, yeah.
I think we've got to approve minutes.
Oh, we don't
on the
have
agenda.
minutes.
So Kamaya goes and watches and does the minutes, so the minutes are in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we didn't do public comments, we have none, but.
Okay, thank you. We have no public comments, thanks. We're doing these things a little bit out of order. And there's two of, okay, so we're still quorum, so we can approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second. So approved. I think I would like a vote to move into closed session.
So moved.
second, you okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So we'll be back in the open session to close it out, but now we're going to move into closed session. Thanks. Meeting, I move to, having concluded all the work for today's meeting, I declare us adjourned. Thank you.